Hi guys.
What's up, Alex? Greetings, everyone.
Mm,
We have an exciting show planned for you all today. Hope you are well wherever you are in the world. My name's Jonathan Berry, and I'm joined here today with my brother, Alex Malorodov. I said it wrong. How do you say your last name right?
Malorodov.
Malorodov. Is that Russian?
Yeah, man.
Cool. Very cool. And
Mm,
yeah, really excited to be sharing this flow cast with you today, this consciousness cast. We're going to be exploring a lot of different topics in this new series, and I'm really excited to introduce you to my community and to be introduced to your community, because I feel like over the past few years, we've both been on our own individual journeys of self-development and expansion into our own experience of spirituality and life. And,
yeah.
you and I had a really awesome way that we kind of first met, and we were both in Guatemala. And, yeah, what brought you to Guatemala? What were you doing there in the first place?
I I was coming off of a plant medicine retreat over New Year's because who doesn't want to, celebrate the new year with a bucket and ayahuasca?
Right.
And I was looking for a place to integrate, and I heard a lot about Atitlan, and so I wanted to go there. So I just kind of felt to go there, and I didn't really know anybody at the time, and it was funny because like I when I ran into you, I heard some of the conversations I feel like you had, or maybe I just heard it in the quantum field, and it turns out that like, hey, we're actually doing the same exact work.
That was great.
Let's be friends.
That was great. Yeah, we were hanging out at a coffee shop, Circles Cafe, for anyone that's been to Lake Atitlan. And I was going around handing out flyers for my event, and I remember putting it. You were on the phone at that moment, and I put it on your table, and then I'm hanging up flyers, and you're like, I think we're doing the same thing. And we ended up scheduling a time. We sat down for lunch, and we were having a conversation, and we were talking about our companies. And the funniest thing was when we realized that we both had companies or initiatives that we call Quantum Shift. Like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
wild.
it was really funny. And then yeah, I like really resonated with your energy, and I think pretty much every time we talked, it turned into like this channeling portal that we would just like go into these modes of channeling wisdom, and like we should share this with people at some point.
Definitely. Yeah, and then so then we started doing these phone calls, through Google, and we would be on a Google document. We were kind of like starting to channel into some new insights and ideas, like if we were to, download a next level kind of like mystic school, or if we were to, kind of weave our ideas together, what would we create? And we started to, meet on a weekly basis, and a lot of really powerful stuff came through, and we were excited because I had a ticket to go to Bali for the Ecstatic Awakening retreat and Bali Spirit Festival, and you were already living out there, and so I was like, all right, let's link up. We're gonna rent like a cool house, and we're gonna get our camera gear, and we're just gonna like record this whole thing. And then literally a week before I was booked to fly out to Bali, Corona happened, and now we're all anchoring down in our homes, wherever that may be in the world. And so we figured, you know what? Why not bring the whole world with us on the journey? And why go and record this in our own house, in a house, when we could just go live and share it with the world? And so yeah, it's an honor to be on this journey with you, and share these ideas. And one reason why I really looked up to you from the very beginning as a mentor was just because of your story. I mean, your background. You really put a lot of time and energy into your education and your personal growth. And I'm wondering if you could just like share some insight into what got you to where you are today. What's your background? What's your experience? I know you hold a couple degrees from universities and other types of trainings. And so maybe you could just share a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about especially like the consciousness community, because everybody has like this amazing nonlinear story that only makes sense in hindsight. And it's really cool because you never know where a conversation with somebody's going to go. And at this point, I kind of just, expect nothing and also, allow for every single possibility. Um, so from my side, yeah, originally born in Moscow. And then at the age of 10, my family moved over to the States and grew up there. And then started going down the engineering path. So I have 2 degrees in electrical engineering, and which is essentially quantum physics. And I remember, I think probably like the biggest thing that stuck out from my education at that time was the quantum physics principle that anything is possible at any given time. And somehow that just like dropped in, and that was the main thing that I retained at the time. That I was like, oh, this is cool. Everything else I don't really care about, but this is cool. and and then I actually started my first job was I was a project manager for nuclear submarine weapon systems, and because that makes perfect sense, and and I realized that hey, like I really enjoy interacting with people, and I don't really want to be in a lab, and I really enjoy kind of like doing negotiations and leading, and so I shifted over to the business side, went into strategy consulting for a bit. And anybody who's been in consulting knows that the one thing, at least one thing that it teaches you, besides being really good at earning points on a lot of different loyalty programs, is that you're able to communicate things very succinctly and in a very organized way, because oftentimes people and executives don't have a lot of time to listen to you. And so I think that laid the foundation for some of the conversations that we're having now. And then I shifted over into more of the business world. I got recruited by Apple to go out to the West Coast and be on their investment team and negotiate deals with startups and investments into startups. And that was my kind of first exposure to that side of the world. And I remember thinking, oh, these entrepreneurs, they're passionate about what they're doing. You mean that's possible? Sweet. I'm going to go be around that. And that was like the drive for me to go to business school. So I moved to New York, went to Columbia Business School, and focused my time on venture capital and startups and entrepreneurship, because the thinking was I can, through reverse osmosis, absorb passion from people. And, I'll tell you the bottom line is it doesn't work. And you kind of
Hey,
have
come
to
on,
come up with your own.
physics. It's physics, right?
I was like, this is going to work, right? There are enough entrepreneurs here that I'm just going to become passionate. So, long story short, I ended up lived in New York, then ended up moving to Switzerland, where I worked in a couple family offices and ran a venture fund focusing on mental and holistic health. And this is kind of where my path to consciousness really kicked off. A former partner of mine sent me an article about ayahuasca, and I was like, yes, I'm all in. Let's go. It's a question of when. So went down to Peru, sat with 6 ceremonies with medicine, and that kind of kicked off this chain of nonlinear events where through some of the things we'll talk about today, but and eventually ended up becoming nomadic, moving to Bali, and now I do like this. I work with business leaders and executives to help them reprogram their reality, which is kind of our intersection point.
Epic. What a journey, man. What a journey.
I know, and it goes on every day. I'm like, it gets more magical. Sweet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's interesting because for me, I started as an inspired entrepreneur, and it's kind of, and then it was like the reverse for me, where it's like I started in entrepreneurship and kind of like creating my own reality, and then as I went deeper down the rabbit hole of creating my dream life, I started to get more into the physics and the science of spirituality, and I was raised in a very spiritual family. And I'll never forget when I was 17 years old watching the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? Did you watch that movie?
No.
Oh my gosh. You got to watch it. It's a classic. But a lot of the OG heavy hitters and in kind of like the science and spirituality scene made this movie that was all about how our thoughts and emotions create our reality and our energy, and starting to kind of like scratch the surface of what's really coming into the mainstream. And that led me down this rabbit hole for many years of just like my own exploration and research and reading. And then I started going to this event called the World Congress of Quantum Medicine in Hawaii. And that was
As
like,
as one does.
yeah, I mean, it was wild. I literally walked into it, and it was a total synchronicity, and I ended up going for a couple of years in a row, and I got to meet Nassim Harriman and Amit Goswami and Dr. Emoto and Joe Dispenza and like all my heroes, and I got to meet
Nice.
them at a very young age, and so it really just kind of catapulted me to, and it really was through osmosis that, like, just by being in the presence of these people, it was like, in that case, I was receiving their dharma, I was receiving their mission, I was receiving their energy, and the commitment that they have, put into doing their work, and witnessing them, showcase it and share their research and their data. And so that kind of really started to get me thinking about, where do I fit into this puzzle? Because I'm not a neuroscientist, I'm not a quantum physicist, but I am extremely passionate about self-development and peak performance. And I was meditating when I was in gymnastics before competing. As a kid, we would, have to visualize our perfect routine over and over in our head before competing. And I was, taking first place all over the world, and then taking that into big wave surfing and snowboarding. And so, in throughout that process, now, starting to identify different patterns, that I've been noticing throughout my own experience, and how can we take these models and apply them to our own lives? How can we take the science, and the spirituality, and apply it to our own life in a practical way? And I feel like that's what
Mm.
you and I are going to be exploring in this upcoming series. And I'm really excited to kind of go down this rabbit hole with you, because many times I come across mentors and guides who are equally as inspired as I am, and they have their experience, but your experience is just so diverse. And one of the things that I really appreciate about you is the fine tuning that I experience in my own energy body and in my own consciousness around what is possible. And it all comes back to that first thing that inspired you when you were studying quantum physics, which is, all possibilities exist in this present moment. Anything's possible. And so I want to just like open up the conversation, as to, what are some of the things, that we can do as the conscious creators, as the quantum creators of our reality, to begin stepping into our power more, and really, reprogramming those old beliefs and tapping into that limitless nature that we have within us. Because I know that's something that I really get from you, is that limitless essence, and how easy it is to activate that limitless nature, if we so choose, and if we can really step into that. So I just want to pass the mic over to you and let
Yeah.
you dive in.
It's funny that you mentioned, you're around Nassim and all these other people kind of through reverse osmosis. So so the foundational principle of reverse osmosis actually does work, and that the people that we surround ourselves with do have a very direct influence on us. I think the where I was wrong was that I thought that entrepreneurs were happy, and that wasn't really the case. And in reality, there's this culture of, hey, you have to work really hard. There was like, when living in New York and in San Francisco, I know there's like this glorification of actually terrible work-life balance and conditions, where people are bragging about how many hours they worked on the weekend. And a part of me was always like, no, I'm not going to do that. And like, it's not always easy in our society to go against the grain and to actually like stick with your own truth and know what you believe, and then not be influenced by others, especially when there is an entire culture built around it that says like, you got to work 80 hours a week, you got to grind, you got to do this like to make
Right.
money. You like, happiness is like, that doesn't, it's not even a part of the equation. You just got to like, and I think this is part of like maybe this is where I kind of had a natural inclination all the time. Like, I knew what I believed on some level, and I never allowed society to influence that. On like, I knew, hey, like, I don't want to work very hard. Actually, I want to work as little as possible, and like, I was okay with that. And so I always looked for, how do I maximize my, like, and leverage my time and my energy with the minimum amount of effort invested. And like, that thinking kind of helped me get through a lot of things, maybe for the wrong reasons at the time. And so what I've realized is, a lot of a lot of pretty much our entire life is driven by our subconscious. It's like 95, 98%. Like, I don't know the exact statistic, but the very large majority of our reality is actually manifested by our subconscious.
Yeah,
And what
90
like
to 95%.
right.
Yeah.
And like what does that actually mean is that we're not always aware of why things are present in our reality. I think at this point, like you and I have done a lot of self work where we're pretty cognizant of that we're creating everything in our reality. And this is like there are a few foundational principles that is important for people to understand in order to progress beyond a certain point. And I've seen a lot of people say, well, I read books and I do this journaling and I work with a therapist. Okay, that's great. That's a wonderful start. And that's a cognitive based approach. And in order to progress beyond a certain point, you get out of that. Um, and the way that, like, my favorite analogy is Eckhart Tolle's analogy on this. It's basically like the mind trying to fix itself and trying to reason itself out is like the chief of police trying to find the arsonist when the arsonist is the chief of police. It's an
Right.
impossibility. Like, your brain is not meant to actually get you out of those patterns. And like, to get out of that, you need to go to almost like a higher dimensional perception. And I think this is where we intersect. And, I'm curious how you kind of interacted with that, or where your perception of like uncovering the subconscious is.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you said that the brain is its job is to not get us out of those patterns, because it's actually wanting to stay in those patterns. It's actually protecting those patterns, and those are hardwired inside of our mind, and inside of the mind inside of our body, our subconscious mind. And so to begin to first become conscious of what are those behaviors, what are those patterns, what are those things that we want to change, and becoming aware of it, and even going as far as writing it down and really just meditating on it. Conscious contemplation is really a lost art, that I feel is so important to rekindle that fire of really becoming conscious of who is it that we want to be, who do we want to become, where are we now, what did we accomplish in the past week of having all the time in the world to focus on everything that we wanted to. Did we just veg out and watch Netflix and chill, or did we take the opportunity to really invest time and energy into something that was pushing us beyond our own boundaries? And so really starting to create those fundamental stepping stones for us to start to evolve. And so it could be as simple as setting an alarm a little bit earlier in the day to wake up a little bit sooner than you normally would and create a morning practice, right? And really making that commitment that, I want to live a more spiritual life. I want to be more aligned in my energy. I want to have more control over my mind, and I don't want social media to rule my life anymore. Speaking for a large majority of the population who, wake up, and the first thing they do when they wake up is what? They grab their phone and they
And
start.
they go on our Facebook Live and they watch this and they improve their life. And so it's amazing.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And so I mean, just like, really becoming aware that, there are people who are being paid a lot of money to hold your attention, and we pay attention, right? We pay attention, and we're, every time that we update our status, we're updating Facebook. We're paying into Facebook and social, Instagram, and so taking our power back and paying attention to those limiting beliefs, to those old behaviors, to those stuck emotions that get stuck inside of our neurophysiological architecture. And then from there, starting to become aware of them, and then making the commitment that you want to start changing them from there. It's like, okay, what is it that you want to create more of? Writing that down and exploring that. I'm curious if you have any things that you would like to add in addition to that.
It's funny. I have like a running joke with my friends that no matter what they say, I will always have a comment on it.
Nice. Nice.
And so something that you mentioned, right? So it's like another foundational principle is living in love versus fear. And those are the two polar opposites. And it's really important to be able to tune into why are you doing a particular thing, and
Right.
being really aware of that. So action without intention is meaningless, because you're just You don't know what you're creating. It's unconscious. And so like externally things could look identical, but internally it will be very different. So for instance, why, why does a person go to the gym? Is it because they're afraid of gaining weight and not looking attractive? And that's one side, that's the fear side. And then the other side of the spectrum is it because they love their body and they want to feel and they choose to feel good? And so externally, it's going to look to the world like, hey, this person got up and physically walked to the gym and worked out and came back. And so externally, people have no idea what the internal motivations of others are. Now, internally, because that person is doing something out of fear or out of love, it's going to have drastically different results for them in the short and medium and the long term. And so it's important to tune into why you're doing something and really do it as an act of love rather than something else. So similarly with a morning routine, right? Like, why are you waking up early in the morning? Is it because, oh, I want to get out of my patterns and like, I don't want this anymore? Okay, like that might be an initial motivation point. However, recognize that you can shift that to, hey, I love that I have this opportunity to learn more about myself and I'm really excited for it. And I'm going to bring that energy of love and excitement. And there's a book called Power versus Force, as well as Letting Go by, what was the name? David Hawkins. And so in there, he has a calibrated scale of emotions. And it goes from like least powerful to most powerful, where at the bottom, it's like fear, hate, resentment, shame, guilt, etc. And it goes up the ladder that eventually when you get to like love, bliss, consciousness, then it's like thousands of times more powerful. It's a logarithmic scale. And so just by being in a higher level of emotion, like an elevated emotion, you're influencing events so much more powerfully than you are if you were living in fear. And like this actually extrapolates to our entire life. How many times, like most people, they enter any kind of relationship based on their role model relationships that they grew up with. And typically it's based on fear. And it's typically based on a fear of being alone or a fear of not being enough. And so what happens is you end up attracting exactly those situations that will prove that fear correct. And so people go through life, tolerating mediocre relationships and thinking that that's the best that they can do and that they're meant to be hard, or they're tolerating jobs that, they have simmering resentment towards their boss and their colleagues, but they think this is the best that they can do. And this society tells them what to do. Well, we're here to tell you that that's not the case. And that's actually, remember the best moment in your life where you are feeling fully grounded, fully happy, fully surrounded by people you love, in full joy and full presence. And right now, if you're attuned to energy, you're feeling this energy emanating from me right now. And so allow for the possibility that it's actually possible to live in a world where you feel this all the time, every single moment. Now, if that's an option, what does it take to get there?
Nice. Yeah, I was just as you were talking, I looked up what is the percentage of that people live in fear, and it says 84% of people hold on to an irrational fear. And I really believe that is because the nature of our ego is to keep us alive. Like we have eons of evolution to our DNA that has prepared us to to stay alive. And so that's a very root chakra, very like survival instinct way of living. And we are entering into a time of the awakening of consciousness. And as we step into that next level of human evolution, we start to access this more loving state of awareness, realizing that the universe created us because it is a masterful creator, and we are masterful creators of our own reality. And to love our creation is to love source, and to be able to have the depth of self-love, to realize that we are the creator, that it is creating through us, and that we are also it. And to come into that deep state of oneness gives us the ability to rest into the realization that everything's working out perfectly. Like I am in the right place at the right time right now. And as we start to use the power of affirmations and the power of our voice to claim in the present moment our power, to claim that right now in this moment I love myself, to claim love for life, and to overpower that unconscious voice that is our ego, that is our old programs and limiting beliefs, and the things that have been handed to us through our families, and become aware that we are not that voice, we are not that narrative. We can rise above that narrative, and we can even write a new story for our future. We can start to create a new script, a new manuscript of our reality, a new manifesto, right? And spell it out, casting spells into our reality. And as we speak those words, we are sending vibrations into the noosphere, the collective consciousness, the field of energy that holds all of us together, all knowledge, all words, all people, all awareness, and we're sending those messages into the world. And we're living in a time right now where the collective consciousness is experiencing a heightened state of fear. And so I feel like putting some good vibes out there into the world, and having these types of conversations are really important, because each one of us that's here listening to this right now, we are the individual nodes of that are going to disseminate information and energy to our communities. And so it's up to us to step into that the depth of self-love that you were describing, so that we can be a lighthouse of love, a lighthouse of peace, and begin to generate that energy for our community, and explore, how will that change everyone's life around you? How can you become that source of inspiration for your community?
Yep, yep, very very well put. A good resource for anybody that wants on that voice in your head is Michael Singer, Untethered Soul, as well as Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now, and talks about that distinction. And so, for those of you who are newer to that journey, to that work, that's a great place to start. To your point, I when I was in New York, and most recently, I went to an event with Jay Shetty, and he brought a Swami, and it was like a really powerful testament to how much like one person's energy or a collective field of energy can shift. So it was a room of like 200 people, right? And it's a lot of, very mental field, New York, entrepreneurs and like happy hour crowd. And like, it was really cool to just watch the energy shift in a
Mm.
span of, half an hour of that guy talking. It was beautiful to watch the energy completely shift. And so, what happens is when we work on ourselves, and we're raising our own level of consciousness, our own level of vibration. So if we're in a state of peace and groundedness and happiness and being centered, that actually influences and radiates out to every single person around us. And this is the concept of the observer effect that was demonstrated through the double slit experiment, that just the act of observing an object influences that object. And so what that actually means is the energy with which you're going through the world influences the world. It's not your words. It's not just your actions. It's your thoughts. Your thoughts are influencing everyone's emotional state, and that influences everything else. So, this concept of, hey, let's actually have these conversations to where we can radiate this energy out. And by doing the work on yourself, you're raising the vibration that then influences every person you come in contact with. And like a really simple exercise is, practice attuning to a specific energy when you talk. Sometimes we're surprised, like, oh, I meant this, but the person didn't receive it. It's because every person is actually reading your energy, whether they recognize it or not. Your words are nice, but in reality, they're reading your energy. And so if your energy is full of self-hate and doubt and anger and resentment, that's what the message is that people are going to receive. However, if it's unconditional love, and you can only do that if you love yourself, that's the only way you can radiate it to anyone, then you can say absolutely anything pretty much. You can say, I hate you, man. And you know that that's bullshit.
I hate
You-
you.
like, and so it's a cool exercise to play with. Hey, I'm going to attune to energy of like anger, of playfulness, and of love. And I'm going to say the same sentence. And then I'm going to ask the other person, hey, what did you pick up? And just like be amazed that they're actually reading the energy rather than the words necessarily. And that's a wonderful practice for people to get into.
Wow, yeah, that would be a great kind of like breakout session to do. Have somebody say something, but then have the person read what did they read based on their energy as they were speaking that. That's cool.
Yep.
And I feel like, we're going to be getting deeper into that as these conversations continue into the future. This is just an introduction. This is our first session. We're going to be going way deeper into some really high level ideas and concepts, and we're excited to share this knowledge and this journey with everyone. So this is kind of the foundations, the basics. And you had mentioned the books Untethered Soul and The Power of Now. If anyone out there is going to be joining us for this journey and you feel compelled to go and dive into those books this week, you can get them on audio, listen to it over the week, or read them over the week. And join us next week. The last thing that I want to share, just kind of going into this idea of the energy that you are radiating, and how to change that energy, how to raise that energy. You were talking about the observer effect, and so as we begin to observe our thoughts and become more aware of the thoughts that we are thinking, it changes the way that we feel. The thoughts and feelings then cause us to take action in a certain way. Those actions over a period of time become our beliefs. And so we kind of go through this thought, feeling, action, belief, neural feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
And that experience that is happening in every moment right now, that is happening. And as we go through that experience, that creates your state of being, which is your embodied state of energy. It's who you are being right now, a human being. And so as you start to practice, harnessing the observer effect to raise your energy, and really tuning into what is your intention, what is the energy that you want to hold as you go into this meeting, or as you talk with your beloved, or as you, walk through the park on your own, what is that energy that you want to cultivate? Know that there is that electrical and that magnetic field that you are generating that is starting at your heart center. You're generating an electromagnetic field that is emitting from your body, creating this electromagnetic field of energy. And that is through your thoughts and emotions, through your intentions, through your beliefs. And I'm curious, Alex, if you have any ideas, how can people cultivate their energy? What are some of the practices that you would want to hand off to someone watching this video that they could start to employ this week to start generating and transforming and transmuting their energy, and not only their energy, but those old programs, those subconscious beliefs?
Yeah, great question. So one of the most important things to realize at first is that you have a choice. Like it's the recognition and awareness that it's your choice of how you feel. So when we say like, hey, someone made me feel this, that's bullshit, because nobody can make you feel anything. Like it's always a choice for you to decide to feel something. And so part of it is taking responsibility for our own emotional state, right? And recognizing, okay, oftentimes we end up being in the emotional state that, that we just like receive from the field, from the world, based on our subconscious patterning. And so an invitation is to say, okay, when do I like how I'm feeling right now? Can I first of all accept that it's okay for me to feel whatever I'm feeling, and if I want to change it, I can, because I'm the creator of my reality. And you can literally just like tune into, what is a time that you felt super happy in? What is a time you felt super grateful in? And really, like, you can close your eyes and go in and really feel that energy in your body. Was it a birthday party? Was it a vacation with your beloved or with your family? And how did that sense of peace feel? And then open your eyes, but maintain that state. And so what you're doing now is you're consciously re-anchoring your state in a different, and you're choosing what you're anchoring it in. And so you're choosing to have a positive anchor rather than what we're typically experiencing are negative anchors that are just unconscious. Now you're saying, no, I want to feel this. And so you can go back into a memory, and all your memory is just a collection of your senses. And so you can just choose to embody that and call that in now. And so you could practice, first of all, just being aware, like, what am I feeling right now? Can I accept it? And do I want to keep it? And if I don't, then, okay, what's another memory that I can like call in and then bring into the present and see how long I can carry that. And an invitation is to then, if you really want to go the next level for all the overachievers in the audience, is to then see what's the effect on other people when I carry this energy shift. Do I notice a change in my surroundings? Do I notice that when I'm happy, that other people, like, that brings out happiness in other people? Do I notice that no matter what happens, I'm actually noticing the positive in every situation? And so that's like the extra credit. And, like you said, we're going to be going deeper into a lot of these practices. This is, accepting that you're responsible for every emotion and everything that's happening in your reality. And that level of responsibility means, okay, that also brings power with it. That means that you can shift something if you don't like it. And so that's a good foundational awareness to have that we'll dive deeper into in the coming weeks.
Awesome. Wow. Yeah, I felt that. I mean, even just in the as you kind of guided that, going into that moment, you can really source energy from the past, right? Because you had that experience. You are neurologically encoded with that experience, with that information. And so, one of the principles of quantum consciousness that we're going to get into later in the trainings, but is non-locality, which means you can move your consciousness into the past, receive a piece of information, receive that code, bring it into the present moment, and then stimulate that neurophysiological experience in your body, and actually retune your body to that experience like an instrument, like tuning your body as an instrument, and then witnessing how that harmonic resonance then affects all of your conversations. I really love that, so thank you for that. And man,
Just one, a quick note on that, and one of the reasons that's possible and that's really cool, and this is where we start getting more into like the quantum realm, is that and like, in the quantum field, and let's say when people say higher dimensions, it just means a higher level of awareness. It's not like a separate dimension that you travel to, but there is no time and space. And so time, like the fact that it's linear time, that it's past, present, and future, an invitation is to maybe start considering that all of those can be happening, and in fact are happening at once. And so you're not, the concept of time travel changes meaning when you have that perception. And so as a result, it's possible to access the past. It's actually possible to reprogram the past. And like, I do that work with people regularly, and like, it's possible to tap into the future, and it's possible to select a different future timeline and to shift into that. So there's a lot of things that open up that are, pretty much magical once you start having these foundations. So, you don't need to believe all of this stuff right now, but an invitation is to maybe just be open to it and see how it feels in your body. And see, your soul always knows which direction to go in. And if it feels even a little bit resonant, allow it to exist. You don't need to believe it, but at least allow for its existence.
Awesome. All right. Well, that being said, why don't you, do you want to just guide us into a quick, short closing meditation?
You're reading my mind. You're a telepathic dolphin. Sweet. So, so closing your eyes and opening up the space and visualizing yourself being surrounded by golden light. Breathing it in, having that light fill all of your cells, all of your meridians, and bringing with it a sense of peace, a sense of equanimity, a sense of unconditional love towards yourself, for being here, for being, for others with whom you can share your state of being. And we're going to attune to divine unconditional love frequency now. And visualizing beautiful white flame emanating from your heart, growing, encompassing you fully, clearing away all programs, severing all cords that are no longer serving. and extending infinitely in all directions, clearing all of your fields. And to ground, we're going to call in the spirit of the rainbow eucalyptus tree in Costa Rica, feeling your energy go down into the core of the earth, and remembering that there's nowhere to go, there's nowhere to run, and that it's okay to just be with love, with presence, with compassion and gratitude. And allowing your body to remember the state of presence and carrying it forward to the rest of your day and future days. You can choose to tap into it at any point. I ask for this to be so, and so it is. And opening your eyes when you're ready.
Thank you for that, brother. Oh, it is. Yeah, that was a great consciousness cast. First quantum shift in the series, and if you're catching us at the tail end, that was the ironic part of our meeting in Guatemala, was that we both have companies that we've created called Quantum Shift, and so we're like, we better create something together. I'm pretty sure that's the universe saying, hey, you guys need to team up and dream up, and we're here, we're doing it.
We're manifesting it, man. And virus or no virus, this is like we're being guided to do exactly what we need to do, and it's amazing. And so glad that we get to share this.
Yeah, it's so funny because I was just thinking, wait a second, months ago we were planning on linking up this month, and actually next Monday was going to be the first day that we were gonna do it. So we're actually ahead of schedule right now. And we're just feeling so inspired. So let's just keep it on the schedule for next Monday, and we'll do it again.
Like, and this is the like, are we still live? Okay. This is like the power of the belief system, right? So, and to a lot of people, like, we're planning this thing, then this pandemic happened, the shutdown happened. People would be like, oh man, I can't do my plans, like, this is terrible, and they would be in that. For us, like, we naturally allowed circumstances to connect and flow in a way that it might be turning out even better, that this might turn out even bigger, and there's no way to predict it but to just trust. And I'm like, wow, let's see what amazing magical shit happens. This is cool. And like, so we're just like allowing circumstances to shift and observing how the universe can actually predict it much better than our human brains can. And that's like the state of being in just that surrender, that allowance, that's really powerful.
It's amazing. Yep. We're just setting our intention, and that's, sometimes it's like we have a vision of what's going to happen, but there's a difference between your vision of the future and what it actually takes to get there. Yep. And so we are dancing on the line of flow and control, chaos and order, and utilizing the power of the observer effect, because where attention goes, energy flows. So let's keep the flow going, and we'll see you next Monday. And Alex, thank you so much, brother, for this epic time together. And
thank you, bro.
Yeah, excited for this.
This is a lot of fun, and excited. And if anybody has deeper questions, just reach out to us individually, and we'll take care of you.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. All right. I'm just going to quickly read through. We got a couple comments here. People saying agreed. Magical shit. And yes, tuning up. Appreciate the dialogue. Awesome. We got some shares too. Very cool. All right. Well, until next time, wishing you all high vibes, and we will see you in the flow.